Alright, man, peace. So, brother, this is going to be the post-fight video for the demolition that occurred last night between the former WBC heavyweight champion, Deontay Wilder, and the current champion, Mr. Tyson Fury. And let me say this to Mr. Deontay Wilder. The same thing that I stated to Mr. Anthony Joshua in the aftermath of his defeat a few months ago. This is going to be the best time period of your life because this is going to force you to acknowledge and accept certain things that you should have acknowledged and accepted after the first fight with Tyson Fury. That being that you have to go back to the drawing board. And I stated this in the post-fight video that I did after their first match. That the worst thing that was happening to Deontay Wilder was that he was allowing himself to fall down that pro-blackity rabbit hole. And all that rabbit hole leads to is self-victimization and lies that you tell yourself from your sycophants. And there's an element of that going on right now in the aftermath of their rematch. This nonsense about Deontay Wilder throwing the fight and what are you really saying? If you're a quote-unquote fan of Deontay Wilder's and you're going to allege that he threw the fight, you're saying that during quote-unquote Black History Month, that your favorite pro-blackity fighter threw the fight against a white man. For what? So that they could have a third fight that was already in the contract? What reason would there be for him to quote-unquote throw the fight, especially in the fashion that you allege he threw the fight? Just accept that he got his ass whooped, and that's a part of life. We're all going to get our asses whooped over the course of this experience in this three-dimensional plane of existence. Whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. You just have to get back up, go harder, and redeem yourself. That's what life is about. It's what's known as the human experience. But just going back to what I've already stated, in the aftermath of their original bout, when I saw Deontay Wilder starting to make up all these excuses, talking about the long count and Floyd Mayweather was hating on him, I made a series of videos warning him because that is what those dudes will do, the pro-blackity fanboys. They'll say, well, no, Deontay, you really won the fight. The reason why they let Fury get back up in the 12th round is because he's white and the referee's white. All this silly shit that was not based in reality. And that's why I state that my channel is a pro-truth channel geared towards the so-called black man. It's not a pro-black channel. Pro-blackity people, they do not have a ruling class mentality. So when the changeover and the shift comes in this society, they're not going to be fit to rule because they're too accustomed to victimizing themselves. In order for the so-called black man to be reconfigured, recalibrated to sit on the throne, he has to be pro-truth, not pro-black. And Deontay, to a degree, he does have a ruling class mentality. I like a lot of the energy that he puts out about being a king. That's a great thing. But he was a delusional king, and delusional kings get dethroned. After that first fight against Tyson Fury, he was supposed to go back into the lab, work on the basics. But that leads to another issue that he has that I want to touch on in this video. Black fighters should not have white trainers. What do I mean by that? The so-called black man, his rhythm is different. You can't have a white trainer, at least not for a long period of time, unless they understand black fighters and how to train them. Like Cus D'Amato, he understood how to train black fighters because of the rhythm and the coordination. So that's what made many of his experiences with Floyd Patterson and Mike Tyson relatively successful. Also, those individuals were already broken mentally. So it was his job as a psychological expert to act as their proverbial MK programmer or handler per se and build them back up in his image so that they basically became Frankenstein monsters of him. But someone like a Deontay Wilder, he's been with that trainer for too long. And that brings me to my next point. I suspect that his next move is going to be to leave that camp, to leave that corner. He's not going to associate with that corner anymore. That's what I believe is going to happen. Whenever you have a fighter like a Deontay Wilder, especially a power puncher, who has so much pride, and he loses the fight, he's going to start to look for things to change because he's going to be going through a lot of psychological issues, especially after a traumatic situation like that, where he was on the edge of being beaten into a situation that he may not have been able to recuperate from. He was getting beaten around the ring. That's why I state this notion that the fight was fixed. A lot of these dudes, they don't understand what a fixed fight is. In a fixed fight, you have choreography. You say, okay, in this round, you're going to throw this punch and I'm going to take the fall. That's how that works. If you want to see a fixed fight, go watch Deontay's fight against Malik Scott a couple years ago. That was a fixed fight. They were homeboys and they agreed that's how it was going to go down. This was not a fixed fight. You don't take a hellified ass whooping for 7 rounds because the fight is fixed. You take a hellified ass whooping because your opponent is just way better than you. And once again, I thought that Fury won the first fight. And I have to give him a lot of credit because I was relatively critical of the fight game plan going into the rematch, even though I saw certain components of things where I understood where they were coming from. Where you want to have a power puncher who does not have good footwork, moving backwards, fighting off the back foot, especially when you're going to outweigh him by 40 pounds. It's very obvious that Fury went to the Kronk gym and they changed his understanding. They elevated his mindset on how to attack his opponent. And most of these successful Caucasian heavyweight champions, most of these successful Caucasian fighters, period, have had their game elevated in the Kronk gym. And that's why I state, once again, Deontay Wilder, he's probably going to end up either with a Derek James, who's associated with Errol Spence and one of the Charlos, or he himself may go to the Kronk gym to finally learn an understanding of his craft. Because there's only so much that a Caucasian trainer is going to be able to teach a black fighter like that. Every once in a while, of course, you have Caucasian trainers who can take a black fighter and make him a champion. But in order for that black fighter to become elite, he needs a person who understands his biochemistry, his body rhythms, things of that nature. Many people still believe that Muhammad Ali's trainer and his instructor was Angelo Dundee, and it wasn't. Muhammad Ali already was pretty much self-made by the time he got to Angelo Dundee. Angelo Dundee was a mafia-connected boxing trainer who would basically afford Ali many of the fight opportunities that he needed. That's why certain trainers were given to certain fighters. Even when you read the Muhammad Ali biography or you research his origins, they'll tell you that he started to box under a police officer, a Caucasian police officer. That's not true. Muhammad Ali was trained by a black man named Fred Stoner. That's how he came to understand his natural body rhythms and how to move in the ring. It's not quote-unquote racial per se. It's just what it is. The so-called black man moves on the 2-4 beat for the most part. For the most part, the other races, they move on the 1-3 beat. So that's how you have the quote-unquote black style of fighting. Whether it's Ray Robinson, Ali, Sugar Leonard, etc. At some point, you are going to have to be trained by a black trainer who understands your body better. Is it too late for Deontay Wilder? Maybe. As I've already stated, the cat is 33, 34 years old. It's very difficult to teach an old dog new tricks, especially someone who's been so dependent for a very long time on that one-punch knockout. But I do see him firing his entire corner, because when your corner quits on you, especially when you're a guy like a Deontay who's very prideful, or another fighter back in the day, Miguel Cotto, or even further back in the day, Diego Corrales, when these guys get traumatized and a hellified ass beating, they say to themselves, why didn't my corner let me go out on my shield like a warrior? Why did they throw in the white towel or wave the white flag and make me look like a quitter and a coward? So just as a mechanism to try to erase that stain of the loss and the embarrassment and the implications of being a coward, most of those great fighters, they're going to change their trainer. So I see Deontay Wilder moving on to another trainer. Hopefully someone who can teach him how to utilize his jab better and utilize his footwork. And I have to give Deontay credit. He did some of the things that I stated he needed to do early in the fight against the Tyson Fury. Jab to the body, jab to the head. But it just wasn't enough. Fury's skill set was far elevated above his. The level of skill was too disparate. in order for Wilder to be able to find his man. And Fury's a type of fighter, and every generation you have boxers on that level with a non-pareil skill set. Every generation you have about 4 or 5 guys whose understanding of the fight game and, you know, the sweet science per se is so much higher than everyone else's that they're almost impossible to beat. Tyson Fury is one of those guys in this generation. He's extremely difficult to hit flush. And if he sees you more than once, it's almost impossible to beat him again because he has all of these advantages. And then on top of that, Wilder is accustomed to fighting fighters who usually are shorter than him. So not only is Fury's skill set way higher than his, the resolve is about the same because Wilder has great heart, but Fury's 40 pounds heavier and 2 inches taller. So if they were to fight again, I just don't see it being any different. Unless Wilder goes back to the drawing board, takes about 2 years of fighting lesser fighters, trying to build himself back up to fight Tyson Fury, who you would have to hope maybe has gotten lax with his mindset and with his training, and maybe Wilder can catch him with something. But like I stated, I just did not see any scenario where Wilder was going to be able to win a fight going the distance. So unless he knocked him down multiple times or stopped him, I never saw him winning this fight. But I did think that there was a remote possibility that Tyson Fury could stop him. And from very early in the fight, you could see that Deontay Wilder was dismayed at what he saw within Tyson Fury. He saw a different look in his eyes from round 1. He realized that, okay, this guy's serious. He is going to try to walk me down and dominate me and knock me out. And I think that, you know, that kind of upset Deontay. It threw him off because I believe that he and his corner had convinced him that Tyson Fury was full of shit and that he really was not going to try to knock him out. And once he realized, okay, he's not backing up. And a lot of guys are like, well, Deontay looked different. He didn't look different. He was being disingenuous about the first fight. He lied and said that Tyson Fury never hurt him. Anyone who knows what they're watching understands that Tyson Fury hurt Deontay multiple times in the first fight. In the first fight, multiple times, he got wobbled. So in the second fight, when he got wobbled again against a fighter who was more active in the ring, 20 pounds heavier, and it really wasn't fat. If you compare Tyson Fury's physique in the first fight to this fight, he wasn't any fatter. It looked like the weight that he put on went to his legs, his shoulders, and his arms more than his midsection. So Deontay realized early, okay, I'm in for it. I'm going to have to try to outbox this guy early to soften him up. And he cannot outbox Tyson Fury. His only chance was catching him with the right hand. And he hit him flush a couple times. Fury was able to sway it and come back. So, I mean, every once in a while, you just encounter a guy who you can't beat. And let me also say this, just revisiting the pro-blackity element once again. Because he listened to so much bullshit after the first fight, where he got convinced by a lot of these dudes that he was quote-unquote robbed and so on and so forth. And he did not do his due diligence to improve his overall skill set in that interim from the first fight to this fight. I also noticed that when he walked into the ring, he was trying to heavily push and promote the quote-unquote Black History Month energy and a lot of that empty jargon. He was already setting himself up for failure. A lot of cats out there might not like this, but there's no such thing as Black History Month because there's no such thing as black. You understand that? I'm sure a lot of pro-blackies on my channel are going to get very upset. I really don't give a shit. There's no such race as black. So that's why if you ever pay very close attention to the concept of Black History Month, it's really Slave History Month and post-slavery, post-indoctrination History Month. So what so-called pro-blackities try to do is try to take the best from a terrible situation and what has been told to them about their history from the mid-1600s up to now and put a smiley face on it. And that's why they don't think properly. That's why they have an inability to take in information properly. And that's why they're always dour and sour and trying to revert to globalism. They want everyone to love them while putting out this contentious vibe and this contentious energy. Either you want to rule or you want to continue to be a slave. But you can't push everybody coming together. Even when you listen to Wilder's rhetoric, this is about pro-Black History Month and loving everybody. Well, it's one or the other. We have to love each other first and build up each other first as a nation of people, talking about so-called black people, before you can push any vibration anywhere else. So they're confused, and he's confused. And that's why he fought a confused fight. He brought a lot of confused energy out there. I'm here to make black history. You left with two black eyes, brother. That's what happened. So we have to focus on the tasks at hand, as opposed to trying to push false energies, false notions. Once again, and there's no disrespect, but the concept of Black History Month is just once again meant to try to reinforce the understanding that black equals slave. Black equals oppressed. Black equals no history. Because you're identifying yourself based on a quote-unquote skin color. A skin color that doesn't exist. Our hair is black. That's about it. So when our people get an understanding of that, we'll get a greater understanding of everything else going on around us. And hopefully Deontay Wilder is healing mentally, spiritually, and physically, and he'll take the time to get a greater understanding of himself, because right now, I'm sure that the vast majority of his fan base are thinking about leaving him behind outright. Because not only did he lose, he caught a hellified ass whooping to a Caucasian man, or a so-called Caucasian man. Because Tyson Fury is a gypsy. And the original gypsies were so-called black, but that's a whole other video, probably not even fit for this platform. But the original quote-unquote gypsies were so-called black, known as tinkers or gypsies, or the Fa per se. But that's, once again, that's a whole other issue. So we'll see where things go with Mr. Deontay Wilder. Once again, I believe that he's going to change trainers, most likely ending up either with Derek James or with the Kronk Jim himself, to learn how to utilize a jab and use a jab to set up the right hand, use his feet to get out the way, learn how to fight moving backwards, things of that nature that great boxers are always going to know how to do. In every generation, once again, they build up these matchups between the ethereal level boxer and the one-punch knockout artist, and people fall for it every time. Every time they think the same thing. Everyone thinks that the one-punch knockout artist is going to beat the great boxer, and he almost never does. Whether it's Ray Leonard or Sweet Pea Whitaker or Muhammad Ali or whoever, almost every time the elite level natural boxer gets into the ring with the one-punch knockout artist, the one-punch knockout artist gets defeated and embarrassed. So what's next for Mr. Tyson Fury? It's very clear that he's going to have a matchup with Mr. Anthony Joshua, a brawl for it all to finally determine once and for all who is the best heavyweight in the world. Deontay Wilder can no longer claim that he's better than Anthony Joshua, even though they've never fought, because of the way in which he got his ass WA-ZA-ZA-ZA-ZUPPED. He got totally embarrassed last night, and then tried to act as if he was going to make an excuse, and then reeled it back a little bit, talking about his leg. Nobody wants to hear that shit, bro. You got beat from pillar to post last night, from the very opening bell, from the start of the fight. And once again, the people claiming that the fight was a fix, you have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what a fixed fight is. You don't take a hellified ass whooping for 7 rounds in a fixed fight, bro. You coordinate what punch is going to hit you so that you take a fall and make it look real. That's how that's how that goes. Nobody says, okay, whoop my ass for 7 rounds, bust my eardrum, have me bleeding from my mouth from round 1, and then you just take the belts from me. I mean, who the hell does that? I promise you, when Deontay's plane touches down, most of the people who claim to be his fans are no longer going to acknowledge him, and that's a great thing. Because 98, 99% of these people that you encounter in life are as fake as a $3 bill anyway. So it's going to be the best thing that ever happened to him. But anyway, Mr. Wilder, like we all do in life, you took a loss. It's a part of life. Peace.